Did start working on, I don't know if I've actually saved it yet. So let me take a look at my workspace here. Okay, so this icebreaker bingo. Let's go in here and kind of take a look at what I've been working on so far. So the kind of the reason for this tool is I am part of an organization called Out in Tech, and we're starting a chapter in Atlanta, and we're having a launch party, and we were talking about kind of different networking types ideas that we could have at the event, and other chapters have done kind of like this icebreaker bingo, and you may have seen it before. We did it at my boot camp as well, where you essentially get a bingo card with prompts, and you kind of try to find people who fit that bill. So it could be, has been to all 5 continents, and you have to find somebody who's been to all 5 continents, and then you can mark that one off the bingo card. So, you know, uh, for the event and for other things is kind of we've been doing it. We're just using paper bingo cards and old school. But it gave me the idea of maybe trying to build a bingo card game uh, type app and using React for it, just because I wanted to kind of get some more practice in React, and it was something that I felt like I can get up and running pretty quick. So I started taking a look at doing that in React, and I was working on that a little bit before. And let me just close this one here and try and reopen this, but in my other screen so it doesn't work, so it works properly. Let's see if I can get it to maximize. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Yep, so we can close that. Okay, and then so I believe this is running, but let's just see if we can get it going here. npm start and show you what I have so far. I'm just kind of bouncing around tonight since this is kind of an unplanned stream. I just hadn't streamed in a while and wanted to kind of force myself to get back and do it. I've been kind of working on some things offline, but I think it's better for me to try and stream when I code for some accountability. Okay, so this is a very simple icebreaker bingo that I have so far. So, for example, if you had this on your phone and you find somebody, oh, you're a vegan. Okay. You click on it and it's complete. You mark them complete. So far I have the very, very basics, and we can take a look at the components. It's basically all in one app. It's not very pretty. Let me kind of close these up here. Okay. So we have our app.js, and I'm not actually bringing it. I have a components folder because I was going to start breaking it down into different components, but right now it's literally all in one file here. But we can break down and kind of take a look at it. And I'm using styled components. Initially, it was not a class, the app. I had to kind of extend it that way. But originally, I was just kind of using Material UI, which I haven't used before. I haven't used any kind of pre-styled components library before. So I took that one because it came up when I was Googling as a really popular one. And initially, I was using a hook API in order to bring that in, but was having some issues with that once I upgraded to a class on my app. So I'm using the style component instead in order to add that style in by just kind of creating this style component. But I am using some typography cards, grid, and the card content items from Material UI. And then I'm using the style components from their styles library as well. And then, of course, using React as well. So what I'm doing is for each of the bingo items, I'm storing their state in the app, starting off as false. And essentially you can kind of think of that as just means like, it really should be, if it was being semantically named, would be 0 is completed, false. 1 is completed, 2 is completed. And each of these corresponds to the ID of the item that's being created. And I wanted to make it to where I could change up the bingo questions and use different ones. And then eventually I actually want to add a shuffle array or a shuffle function into this to shuffle the array. that's being used. But for right now, I'm importing bingo items from bingoitems.json. And so this is essentially, it has the ID and it has the item, has lived in another country. And this is what's generating the questions. I have quite a few more of these, but wanted to start with just kind of a simple 12 item grid. It doesn't even really make bingo. And I realized that is the same way on the cards that I created for the event. So it's kind of be more of the spirit of a bingo game instead of an actual bingo. And hopefully people will forgive me for that. But so that's what this is pulling in. It's just the item and the ID and then the actual text. But this is saving whether or not it's been marked completed. And then I also have my bind for this .mark complete. I don't know if I actually need this because mark complete, yeah, it's not an arrow function. So I think that's why I do need it. From my understanding, if I were to update this to an arrow function, I wouldn't need to bind it. And I don't know if anyone in chat can confirm or deny that for me. But that's my understanding why I have that there. So a little rusty on React. Haven't used it too much since my boot camp. And then so this is my bingo row. That's what I'm calling here when I actually render this. So the bingo row. So the reason I'm slicing this out here is I wanted to make sure that the grid stayed 3 across. And then I also, when I go to eventually add the shuffle, I want to pick off the items by each row individually. So I created a switch case for each of the rows. And so that way when I call it here with the row number, it's going to pull what the row is. And this is like probably a really janky way to do it, to be honest. And I'm definitely going to want to refactor this because I could just, take the items in and then have like a different function to create the row. But anyway, so that's how that's working right now is I'm passing the row number through. The switch case is taking that parameter that I've passed through and it's saying, okay, if you want it to do 1, then it's going to be row 1. So it's going to be items 0 through 3 in the array and slice that off. And then what that's going to do is it's going to return the row. And that's what this is here. This is the JSX to create that row specifically. So if you look on the app, that's this here, these 3 items, so to speak. That's a row, and that's what's being created with this. And so what that is it starts with the grid container, which holds the 3 items. And then we're taking the row, the render row that's being saved here, that's being defined here, in the switch case, and we're mapping over it. And then for each item, we're taking the ID, and if the ID in the state is true, then we're returning complete. So that means that if this has already been clicked and it's been returned as true, and we know that the state for that is true, then it's going to return this complete card, which you can see here. And I can kind of demo that using inspect. I know it looks terrible once you actually zoom in. I'm working on that. Haven't quite figured out the styling aspect of it. That's always my least favorite part. I like making things work and run around. Okay, I carry a flash drive. Don't judge me. Awesome. Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Thank you very much for that. Thanks you for tuning in too, by the way. Yeah, so like I said, my React knowledge is a little bit all over the place because I haven't used it too much and I've learned it in bits and pieces. So sometimes I copy things from old repos and it turns out that I don't actually need that information anymore. So, but taking a look here, so I'm using this extension, the React extension. So if I go into components and I click on app, I can see the state. So we can see here that this is true. This one is false. This one is true. This one is true. And so when it's true, it's rendering as complete. If it's false, it's going to render as what the question is. And so if we go back to the code, that's what's happening in this next section here. So you have the if it's not complete, so if this.state.id is not true, so if it is false, then it's going to return this, which is going to actually have the item.item, which if we go back to the JSON, we can see that the item.item is the actual string here that we're looking for. So it's going to show item.item in the typography, And then it's also going to add a click, whether you click on the typography or the bingo item, because I found that um, if you click on, if I had this dot mark complete on the text, but if you didn't click on the text or if you clicked on the card part of it, then it wasn't triggering. So I added it for both. So whether or not you click on the actual text itself or just more on the card, it'll trigger the event either way. And that mark complete, all of that's doing is it's taking the ID of what you've clicked, the target ID, and that's why I have the ID set for the bingo item and also the typography, so it'll grab that ID no matter what you click. And it's just setting it to true. And I'm using this .set state so that it re-renders. So once that ID has been set to true and it re-renders, it's going to render it with this complete button item instead of the original question. So again, if we kind of do this, refresh this with the inspector on, we can see that when, well, let's take a look at the element first. So this first one has lived in another country. We can see that it has an ID of 0, and then also the div above it here also has an ID of 0. So regardless of whether we click on the actual typography or whether we miss and we click on the whole box, it's still going to capture this ID of 0 as the click event target for the element. And then once we do click on it, it will update the state. So if I go back over here to my components and up to the app, and I can see the state, and I click on it, so we've seen that it's changed to true and it's upgraded to complete. And that's what's causing it. And then also, so that actually has re-rendered behind the scenes when I clicked on it in its set state. And then finally, the app section here is where I'm actually rendering the whole page. So this is what's being returned from the function. So it's the div essentially as the parent, or I guess you would use fragment now. I don't think you're supposed to use divs anymore. I think you're supposed to use fragment to kind of house any type of JSX that doesn't have a single parent. And again, if anybody in the chat could confirm and deny that for me, I believe that would be a better way to do this. I think that's what it's called. And then, yeah, I need to auto import this as well. And then, so within that, I have my grid container for the entire page. And then that's going to house the grid rows. And then I have the typography. So that grid container is for the top row that has the header in it that says Icebreaker Bingo. Ooh, very exciting. And what's happening here is that with a variant is that's referring to the material UI, to the style components. That's creating an H3. And then gutter bottom has to do with with setting the margin on it so it doesn't go too far up. Because what's happening, if you don't have that on there, I can show you it. See here, it kind of pushes up against it there, as you can see. So, and it looks like fragment does work with that as well. So we'll go ahead and leave that in there. So I think that's more semantic than just using a div. And we will put this back in. And then, so we can kind of think of this as a header. So really, like, this could be its own component, right? And that could be header component, and you could change out the text within the header component. And then, you know, we have bingo row, which could also be pulled out into its own component. And then you might have it render bingo card, and bingo card is actually calling bingo row 4 times, passing through the parameter to create the row. And then, you know, closing out the fragment. So there's definitely a lot of refactoring that needs to be done, and then also some additional features that I want to add. So I think that's kind of what I'm going to be working on right now, is breaking this out into components. And ultimately, the next feature that I want to add is when you click on it, it says complete, but I want to change the style. So I want to essentially add another style component where it says, you know, completed item, and then changing the background color so that it's categorically different. And that would kind of be, you know, the like the V1, the absolute basic, like this is a bingo card. It changes colors when you complete it, and you can see when you've created a row. Like I said, not a real bingo card because there's only 12 things, but ultimately, I would love for it to be able to, when you click complete, you can type in the name and email address of the person that helped you complete that card, and then you can send them to yourselves. And yes, fragment is, oh, okay, so you don't even need to put fragment in there. That is really cool. So it's just kind of an empty tag. Great. Awesome. Thank you. And we'll just, yeah, looks good. So yeah, so I think what I'm going to work on, actually before I get to the refactoring or breaking out the components, is just to have it like a basic functionality, is go ahead and add that other style component so that this changes colors when it's complete. So let's go ahead and do that here. So we're going to do const completed item is a styled card. And this is just using the this kind of the style components from Material UI, and I can pull up the docs for that actually. Probably wouldn't be such a bad idea. So Material UI, popular React UI framework, and I think I just went to get started. Yeah, and so but essentially I installed it. I went to usage, and this explains kind of how to use the actual components themselves. So I was using typography and I used card. But if you go over here to styles and basics, this is where it talks about the Material UI style library. And so I installed it into my package.json. And like I said, initially I was doing this where I essentially had an object called make styles, and each of my classes had it broken down like in an object style, which I thought was pretty cool. And then when you export the item, you just put class name equals and then classes.root. And so like root style or classes.card or classes.heading, whatever this actual style is. But that didn't work once I upgraded to class. There's probably definitely a way to do it. I just didn't know how to do it. And so I started doing the style components instead. So import styled from Materials UI /core/styles. And it's just const, my button is a styled button, and you can do the custom styling here. And then you just use that component name. I'm not sure which is more efficient or which is better. Happy to take some insight into that, but that's what we're essentially doing here. So now we're going to create an object that essentially holds the custom CSS. And again, we're going to do it like JSX style, where instead of using a hyphen, we're doing camel case. But for a completed item, we still want to have text align as center, but the background, I would wish that I appreciate those sometimes, the pop-ups, but other times they drive me crazy. So linear gradient, I am not a designer, so I am going to do my best to pick out two colors that are kind of green. Let's see. I shouldn't say that I'm not a designer. But it's not my strong suit. I'll say that. I've done it a lot and I like it, but I really I have like very simple kind of designs. And I know that somewhere in here I have a color scheme. Yes, best flat colors. And so I tend to refer to tools like this, actually, which are great. Oops. Oh, it's just a little different than it was last time, but green, hexadecimal. Okay. So we'll find just a pretty light green and a pretty dark green. So I kind of like jade, maybe, or maybe Salem to jade. Let's see how that looks. And then I'm just going to keep the same percentages because I'm assuming that whoever made those up at Material UI really knows what they're doing. So I'm going to just leave that up to them. And then this is going to be the 90%. Okay, sorry, percentage, then that. And then color, let's go ahead and keep it as white. Let's just see how that looks. And okay, this has that, and then I need to add another parentheses. Perfect. Okay, and then we're going to change this over here from bingo item to completed item. So let's see what happens now. Yay! All right. Oh, there it goes. Okay. The click is the functionality is a little tricky. Okay, so yeah, I think the colors aren't great, but probably something a little more teal would look better. Maybe observatory, maybe medium turquoise. I know it's not the most important thing in the world, but if you'll humor me for a second. Let's see if that looks any better. Yeah, that looks pretty. It's a little more in line with the original. Okay. Yeah, so now we have kind of like a MVP functionality. We get, when you open the app, it shows prompts. You can find somebody that's wearing yellow. Great. Lovely to meet you. Click complete. And let's say you were just doing like a full square prize, once you hit all of them and you were complete, then you could go show somebody. And because it's the way I have it set up, you can't like go back once you hit complete. Once you've dabbed it, it's dabbed. And then you could demonstrate like your card or show it to whoever you wanted to do. So that's pretty cool. We have some basic functionality here, which is kind of exciting. And so what I'm going to do is commit this to GitHub because I don't think I've done that yet. So okay, yeah, so that's so if you accidentally click on a card, you can't toggle it back to false right now. That's definitely something that I could essentially add just by doing a set state. So if I had it to where on complete, here in the code where it says the complete item, I could add the on click here. Instead of like this dot mark complete, I could have another function. And ideally it would be a toggle, right? So if you were going to have toggle behavior, it would be just like toggle complete. It wouldn't be mark complete or mark incomplete. So basically you would just change this to where if you had the ID and if it was like if this, or like if ID, where is it? How do I have it here? It's this. It would be the same over here. Like if this dot state dot ID equals true. Or you could even have it as like a full. I know that you can toggle classes. I'm not sure how well you can toggle state in React. V2, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that would be the version 2 is to toggle. But essentially you would have something like that. And then, so if it were true, it would set it to false. Or I mean, it would just, keep it as true. But if it were false, you could toggle it back. So I'm just going to go back to how that was before. But that's how you would do it. You would essentially, on the completed rendered button, you would make sure to add an on click to handle that functionality. And then, where was I? Yeah, okay. And then edit, redo. Okay, and save. Yeah, so I don't think this is attached to a GitHub yet. So let me just, sometimes I don't immediately put it up on. Okay, well there's definitely Git. Git remote. Nope. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so it's not connected to a Git repo. That's what I thought. So we'll create a new one. Classic. I already have a ton of repositories. Icebreaker bingo. And if anybody actually wants to contribute to this in any way possible, that would be great. I would like to get it actually deployed and functioning, especially with the. I mean, I took a look at the LinkedIn Oh, okay. So if IG does not equal ID, yeah, that's a good way to. Yeah, that's true. Or if it does not, yeah, if it doesn't actually match up with the, it doesn't exist. Sorry. Yeah. So I would like to actually get it functioning, because I think that it would be a good tool to have at icebreaker at events and things like that. And you can customize the questions using your own JSON file, which I think is what kind of makes it the most interesting. Or you can add it. So, for example, on our bingo cards, I have it's your first year in Atlanta, whereas on here I have first year in town, to try and kind of make it more neutral. But it was yeah. So I think that it would actually kind of be like a fun game to do, because like I said, we did this at our boot camp as well to get to know each other. And so I I'm a big copy paster, but Gitbash doesn't always agree with me on that. Nope. Okay, so let's let me type it in. So just git remote add origin, and then shift insert. Nope, did not like that. Let's try copying again. This, okay, and then git push origin master. Oh wait, git status. Oh, awesome. Oh yeah, check state, previous state. Thank you very much for that. I'm assuming this is also the same. You're the same person on Twitter, Lori. So I thank you very much for hanging out and giving me some of these insights. Yeah. So how to toggle a Boolean state of React component will definitely be awesome for V2. And change is not stage for commit. Okay, we're just gonna add git commit initial commit of v1 functionality. Git push origin master, and I am pushing right to master because it is my repo and I will face the consequences. Awesome, thank you. Okay, and it looks like we have a couple more people that have joined in, so thank you very much for checking in and saying hi. If you want to say hi, feel free, but if you want to lurk, I totally get it. I'm a lurker myself. But just to show you what we're working on, so first I went through kind of like a Node API tool that you can use if you want to get all the commits since your latest release, to help write some release notes, or also for tracking against your project management service. And then now I'm kind of working on an icebreaker bingo app where you click it and it says complete. We're going to be doing some refactoring and kind of breaking out some of these things into, oh, I don't need to import fragment anymore. I'll just leave that. In order to break out some of these pieces into components, because right now they're all in one app. So yeah, so the last thing we just did was we created a new styled component in order to change the color on the completed item. Okay, so taking a look at some of these things, so what can we break out? So like I know we talked about before how header, for example, could be its own item. And so I also had it where button was its own component at first, but yeah, so so we have this here. It really only exists once, but I feel like the final render should probably have the least amount of JSX in it that it needs. Because then, and then also if you wanted to change the header title separately, you could do that. So we'll go ahead and cut this out, and we're going to do header as a component. Well, I think header already exists as a component, so we're actually going to do this as maybe like bingo header. And gosh, I really miss working with .NET where you can kind of just right click it and it'll, what does this refactor do? Okay, I'm just curious. All right, we won't quite do that yet. I'll just copy it for now. So if we're in our components and we're going to create a new file, and let's just say it's, you know, header, well, bingo header.js. And I'm going to paste that in there. I just want to take a look at how I did this in some other things that I've done. Budget calculator, source, and then the components here. So like step 1. That's something that needs state, and I don't, well, it's taking props in. Okay. Okay. So until things become habit, which for me, they almost never do, I have to reference a lot of things. So this is an example of import React from React function header and then export default header. Great. So this is a function header, and we're returning, and this is where we're going to put the JSX that we're going to be returning. Whoop, and now if we go back to our app and we import header, components, bingo header, and then actually we're going to do bingo header, and then now if we come down here and replace this with a bingo header, hopefully it doesn't break. Nope, it did. Grid is not defined. Ah, okay. So I need to bring these items. Well, I need to bring in the items from Material UI that I'm using. So grid typography, I need both of those. I don't need cards. I guess it doesn't probably matter too much, but keep it clean. Boom. Okay. Why is that not working? So bingo header. Oh, okay. It's not, looks like it's not being used. Why is that? Okay, so we'll do it. Bingo header. Let's try it this way. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. Components / bingo header. And then we're going to do maybe like this. Okay, so let's make sure I'm using it right the first way. Oh, maybe. Import bingo header. let's see. So I export default as header, and then I go back to my components and go back to the actual app. Nope. Okay, import images scores header from component/header, and then okay, so render header slash. Yep, that's exactly how I have it. Import header from, import bingo header from, and then, okay, so, bingo header slash, I know that this shouldn't matter, but just in case. I feel like a crazy person. Okay. Typography grid, yeah. Okay, let's see if it's the way that I'm pulling it in. Probably. I think I need to like probably label it with this or something of that nature. So let's go to React.js, the OG, the docs. Yep. All right, so we're going to revert. Go back to where we came from. There we go. We'll get rid of this. Okay, so instead of, I will do some research on why that's not working later on, but in the meantime, we'll do some more fun stuff just to kind of wrap up the hour. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this, and we'll do that refactor where we turn this into an arrow function. So if we go to mark complete, and I think honestly, like all we like literally have to do is this. But let me, I don't know, that arrow didn't turn blue. Gosh, I can never remember how to write arrow functions. Okay, so I think it's like mark complete equals, and then, no. Okay, let's see. How did I do it here? Okay, so it's yeah, so it'd be mark complete equals the E arrow. Okay, so I think I just need to take it out of parentheses. Yeah. Okay, why don't you like that? Oh, there it goes. Okay, yeah, so mark complete equals E arrow. And then I should now be able to take out this binding. No longer need that. And we will save it. And it's not, oh, it's not broken. And it still works. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, so that pretty much gets us to right about an hour. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. Was happy to see some people watching. And again, this video will be posted up on YouTube, and the repos, as always, are on Cecilia Creates and public. So please feel free to add, to comment, create issues, make it better, anything that you'd like. And again, so I was working with the Icebreaker Bingo repository. So that is here. And then the other one I was working with is API tools. And that's where I had the one today, which is the pull commit since release. That handy little script there. Again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.